First of all, I'm Paul Caskey. I'm with Internet2 and InCommon, and I want to welcome you all to the InCommon Certificate Service webinar today. We're going to be talking about the redesign committee that was formed and the whole concept of redesigning the InCommon Certificate Service. We'll look at the survey that that committee produced and some use cases around the certificate service, both current use cases and prospective use cases. So a little bit about, you can go to the next slide. Sorry. This is a quick, yeah, here we go. That's a list of our topics. We'll do some introductions. We'll have some presentations and demos, and then we'll have time for Q&A. And then we'll wrap it up. First of all, this is being recorded, and so you'll get a link to this recording in case you have colleagues that weren't able to attend today or you want to refer to it later. We'll also be sending out slides. We'll be taking questions and comments using the Zoom Q&A. The chat is available if you want to, make fun of what we're wearing or talk about what you're having for lunch, that's fine. But we'd like the questions to come via the Zoom Q&A feature. You should see a button at the bottom of your screen that says Q&A, and that's where we'll take questions. This is supposed to be interactive, so please feel free to ask questions as soon as they come up, and we'll get them addressed. And yes, there's a note there about making sure if you're going to use the chat that your message was sent to everyone. Okay, quick look at who's attending today. We got quite a broad set of universities and organizations that are attending today. We're very thankful for that. So welcome everyone. There's a list of your colleagues. And now for our speakers. Again, I'm Paul Caskey with InCommon and Internet2. First up today is going to be Lisa Doherty. Lisa is the manager of academic computing and the data center computing at Northern Arizona University. She's also the chair of the InCommon Certificate Service Redesign group that I mentioned just a moment ago. And then after Lisa will be Nadim El-Khoury, Director of Networks, Systems, Infrastructure, and the Chief Information Security Officer at Springfield College. And then at the end after that, we'll have Warren Stahl. Warren is a Senior IT Security Analyst at the University of Iowa. So without further ado, we'll go ahead and kick it off to Lisa. This is the topics again. Why did we do the redesign group? Who took the survey? What are the use cases? And we'll wrap it up at the end. So with that, I'll turn it over to Lisa, who's going to talk about that first topic.
Good morning or good afternoon, depending on where you are. Again, I'm Lisa Doherty with Northern Arizona University. And we formed the redesign group to review the current InCommon certificate service and evaluate potential new service offerings that might bring that a little more current with today's needs and use cases. We started this redesign group in May 2023 and met throughout the summer, considering all of our various options and potential for new offerings. We sent a survey out to the InCommon certificate users, RAOs and DRAOs, at the end of September to gauge a couple of things: current satisfaction with the service offerings, as well as interest among the users in the different new offerings that we had identified as the redesign group. And well over the half of those respondents in that survey represented organizations in higher education, which gave us a sense that this is a much more representative result in our findings. And so with that, I would like to, you can see on the slide, we've begun some discussion with Sectigo, and I will turn it over to Warren, I believe. No? Yes? I've lost it, sorry.
Yeah.
No. Nadine, I believe, is going next. Yes, or
Actually, Warren is going next.
yeah. Okay.
Okay, so who took the survey? There was a bunch of universities across higher ed, ranging in size from large research universities to mid-sized universities, colleges, a couple of federal agencies, and smaller shops. We can go to the next slide. So the survey's use cases, the overall results comprised was from a combination of a cumulative total of 747 responses to the section, and then one. I don't know what that none of the above from the respondents what that was, why those folks selected the selection that they did. But we can go over to jump into the next slide, which is starting on the accessing research cyber infrastructure. And these certificates are used to access international collaborative research projects involving institutions and unique instruments located in various countries, and are issued by a trusted InCommon Certificate Authority, which is accredited by IGTF, which stands for the Interoperable Global Trust Federation, through the America's Grid Policy Management Authority, or TAG-PMA, for web services and authorized individuals in the US. A total of 18.47% or 75 out of the total 747 survey respondents report to use this certificate type to access international collaborative research projects. So we can advance to the next slide. So at Iowa, the website signing and encryption certificate is one of the one of the biggest used certificate products, and we currently are utilizing 12% of the total subscription for this particular certificate type is being used to issue certificates that are generated using Acme and or Certbot. So if we can, and I'll hand it over to Nadeem to speak on how things are done at Springfield.
Yeah, hi everyone. Good morning, good afternoon. Basically, we are a small college here in Massachusetts, Western Massachusetts. And everything that we're doing today in terms of managing certificate is 100% manual. We only have 66 certificates that we issue for current servers and systems. We have 4 certificates that we hand over to vendors for our SaaS-based products. And we are planning to move and use Acme Certbot for Unix-based environments, Linux and FreeBSD. And the reason we chose Acme Certbot because we are moving away from Linux and standardizing on FreeBSD. And that's the only option you have when you are using FreeBSD. For Windows, we are planning to use the network agent for Windows-based certificates to help manage the systems that are Windows-based. Our challenges right now are that we are short-staffed. We don't have enough expertise in Unix-based automation. And we are looking at how best to use MDM to manage certificates on college iPads, Apple TVs, and also adding laptops because we use the certificates for EduRoam to access EduRoam.
We can hand this over to Lisa at Northern Arizona University to do a quick description of how this certificate offering is offered on her campus.
Thank you. At NAU, we find that 91% or so of our certificates are managed service now through a REST API. We use that much more broadly than we did. The growth has been phenomenal over the last 2 years since we implemented it. About 7% are managed just with pure Acme via CertBot. And we have 1% of our certificates that have somebody directly logging in as an RAO through the SCM administrator website and issuing certs there. We have 13 manually managed domain delegations and validations. And our biggest challenge is lack of a fully automated installation and management functionality on our campus. Next slide, please. Things that we have email signing and encryption used to encrypt the contents of our email messages between some government agencies that require signed authentication verification of those communications. Our International Student Office is one of the users of our email signing certificates.
And
I'll hand it back over.
Thank you. So at Iowa, we also use the S1 email certificates, and they had this particular certificate offering attracted a lot of initial attention when the service was first made available. The current use, however, is down to a handful of staff across campus who primarily use it at the moment to sign email. For any certificate-based requirements at the federal level, I think those are handled directly with federally approved certificate authorities, but that's about the scope of its use here at Iowa.
And we actually have a very few at this moment in time, 2 active email signing certificates in place. So it's very similar. It's not a high use. It was very popular initially based on the history of email certificates that we had issued, but nobody came back and said, let's keep this going.
Thanks. So the next slide is code signing certificates, and per the survey, code signing certificates had generated, or it was reported that 157 of the 747 respondents are using this particular service. So if you want to advance to the next slide and jump into how that's being used at Iowa. We continually look for ways to use code signing certificates. The primary goal behind that there is to potentially increase efficiencies, gain efficiencies through the automation of digitally signing applications and software programs using this particular certificate type. It looks kind of promising at the moment, but yeah, we're hoping to try to get that number up and up going there. So we'll pass it over to the next slide, and then the next slide is Northern Arizona again.
And we're very much a minimal user of the code signing certificates today. I know of one user that currently requests them. NAU would like to see a broader adoption of code signing certificates as well, and we're looking to engage our developers in embracing the code signing certificate.
So before we jump into prospective use cases, which I'll hand the presentation over to Nadeem, we have a couple of questions. I don't know if we want to see if we can get answers to those. One of the questions is from Matt, who's asking if the certificates are being issued and replaced or installed automatically using CertBot. And I guess I don't know, Paul.
Yeah, go ahead and answer it.
So at Iowa, we are using we have a few of our staff that are aggressively taking charge and using both CertBot and Acme to generate certificates, and those, from what I hear, have been very successful.
Okay, and I will push Brian's question to the end Q&A section, since that's kind of a new feature.
Sounds good. I'll hand it over to Nadine.
Well, we'll be talking about the prospective use cases and the results from the survey. Next slide, please. So we had around 59% of you responded that wanted to look at integration with the cloud, AWS and Azure. We had around 51% that automatically wanted to use the certificate with EduRoam, and 49% with VPN access. But the requirement is that you might want to use a private CA for management of these certificates. 51% noted that they needed automation and deployment, particularly using Ansible. And we had 30% of other integration like Azure Key, Vault, F5, Big IP, and Palo Alto networks. Next slide, please. So the next one talks about authentication for EduRoam and the need to use certificate-based authentication versus username and password, and how it can be used to allow user access to your network in a more secure fashion. Next slide, please. So here are some of the benefits and uses of using authentication for EduRoam. And actually, we do use it here at Springfield College to connect departmental iPad, laptops, and also Apple TVs. And some of the benefits are you have improved security, and it's more secure than the traditional passwords and methods that you use. It's a seamless user experience. Users do not have to frequently reset their passwords, and it improves their overall user experience. It gives you faster roaming and re-authentication than when you're connecting to the network versus using a username and passwords. It's a lot faster. And centralized management. You can leverage your mobile device management or CloudPass software. In our case, we're using JAMF for some of the iPads and Apple TVs to push these certificates. Some of the roadblocks that you will encounter when deploying certificates for EduRoam is that you would run into devices that cannot support certificates. You have a configuration complexity. One of them is to ensure privacy. You would have to put in the user principal name in the certificate, but when it comes to EduRoam, we recommend that is hidden so that people so they won't be able to track you easily. So that adds some complexity to the setup. The other thing is that you need to coordinate with the EduRoam Federation. You need to make sure that the visiting site will allow to proxy that certificate all the way back to your home campus. And if there is a misconfiguration at the visiting site, then your user will not be able to log in, and they might have to revert back to username and password. Next slide, please. So Adobe signing PDF, and here was the individually issued Adobe compliant certificates that can be used to sign documents and transcripts and federal documents. So next slide, please. So here's some of the benefits using the Adobe Sign PDFs, which is increased trust and authenticity of the document, improved compliance, which provides a documented audit trail for important decisions and approval. Environmental benefits, you reduce the paper usage, just so you don't have to print these documents and share them around for signing. Flexibility and accessibility. Certified documents can be easily viewed online and annotated without compromising the security or certificate. So when you move it from one person to the other, someone cannot modify that document easily. The other one is Adobe, the signing Adobe of PDF is FedRAMP moderated certified. So for R1 schools that deal with the federal government for DoD type contracts, you can use the signing Adobe of the PDF for the FedRAMP. Some of the roadblocks that you'll encounter for adoption. So automation and distribution of certificates is not that straightforward. And then you have the oncoming 90 days expiration. How are you going to deal with that if you don't have automation? Plus the price of getting Adobe signed. Some university or colleges like Springfield College, it's a bit expensive to us. So we do have the suites of Adobe product, but we don't have the signing capability at the present moment, but it's something we're looking into. Next slide, please. So integration with cloud system, I believe Lisa would speak to that.
So one of the big interests at NAU is automating the installation of our certificates. And this isn't just limited to on servers for web server, Apache or Nginx, Tomcat, IIS. We're looking at automation for certificates on our load balancers. And we're also looking to include that automation through our CI/CD pipeline so that the applications themselves and the pipelines can handle that automation of renewal of certificates. And that really is driving app preparation for the 90-day certificate cycle and how we're going to handle those use cases. As you can see, the benefits are automation of just about everything, automation of the installation and management on your load balancers, container application deployments, the CI/CD pipelines. But our current challenges are limited knowledge and understanding of CI/CD pipeline process and certificate management. And we remain largely manual in the installation of our certificates. And also the last one there is kind of important to us, the hybrid cloud architecture. We have both an on-prem and an Azure cloud presence, as well as some third-party hosted sites. So automating certificates where we are the issuing site is still one of the biggest challenges for us.
And I'll take it over. So we're facing similar issues, successes / wins at Iowa, that I'm sure most of the other schools, universities, and organizations are facing at the moment. Our staff at Iowa continue to try to improve and gain efficiencies through the exploration of how we can automate a lot of our backend processes and improve them with all of the various emerging cloud-based technologies.
So you can use certificate-based VPN to authenticate users to your VPN system. There was 49% of the respondents said that they're using it or would like to use it. And if you go to the next slide, please. So I wanted to talk about some of the benefits of using the VPN access. One of them is the improved security. It's more secure than traditional passwords methods, like the same thing like in EduRoam. You can use it for mutual authentication. Both the user / the device and the server verify each other's identities. It covers all endpoints. You can use the same certificate on a laptop or an iPad or an iPhone to connect someone to your VPN system. Again, you have centralized management where you can use mobile device management or CloudPass software to push that certificate to the devices. You can extend it to external users where contractors and partners where you don't have to issue a username and password for them. And the other thing is that you can have real-time lookup and revocation. So it integrates with Radius servers, and they can perform the real-time checks on certificates, validity, and revocation status. So this way you can automatically revoke a certificate and someone does not have access to your VPN system. And also certain multi-factor authentication today still use the username and password. So even though the multi-factor authentication can prevent some add some additional security, but recently, like Duo and some other MFAs were under attack, where people were tricked to accepting the second factor, where people allowed someone else to log in as themselves. So the next slide after that is actually talking about the Verified Mark Certificate, VMC. And VMC certificates can be used to insert the organization logo next to an email sender's name. And it's increasingly common that cybersecurity insurance companies are asking about VMC in the context of brand indicators like BMI for message identification. And some of the benefits of using VMC and BMI is that you increase brand recognition and visibility for your university or college. You have improved customer experience and engagement with the brand, and you will need to think about student, faculty, and staff as your customers. It enhanced email security by leveraging the DMAC authentication, and also visual trust indicator for recipient that the email is from a verified source. And also one of the other benefits is reduced risk of phishing and spoofing attacks. Today, there are only two companies that provides the VMC certificate, and that's DigiCert and Entrust. And the price is very expensive. It's $1,499 per logo. If you have an additional domain, that's $319 from DigiCert. Entrust is $1,258 per logo and $483 extra for domain for verified mark. So here at Springfield College, we used it last year. Unfortunately, our budget was reduced and we were not able to afford to renew it for this year, unfortunately. And this is another service that if InCommon and Sectigo can provide, I think it can be beneficial for small colleges and universities like ours and others also around the US. And I'm going to hand it over to Lisa.
So as we come to the end of our findings, our use cases and potential use cases, if we can go to the next slide, please. You can see a breakdown of the interest that our survey gauged, where we had a high level of 59% of folks were interested in the cloud integration features, application build processes, particularly with AWS and Azure. 51% were interested in the authentication with Eduroam, 49% to VPN access, which both indicate in many cases a strong need for private CA management as a future offering. There are 51% also looking at automation and deployment, particularly with Ansible, as we've mentioned, and 30% of interest across Azure Key Vault, F5 Big IP, Palo Alto Networks. Those were the top results. And as we have begun exploring these offerings, one of the big things that we've noticed is for the current users to leverage the full functionality of these potential new offerings as we get our handle on what those will be specifically. This will come with a migration of the InCommon account to a Sectigo account, which can leverage the full capabilities of that Sectigo platform. Anyone who is currently satisfied with what they're using and getting and receiving and the certificate services meeting their needs fully has the option of simply remaining with their current InCommon certificate platform. And with that, we'll open it up to Q&A.
Brian asked, is anyone using InCommon certificates for document signing? We talked briefly about that. One of the challenges of that is that Adobe has their own walled garden for this. I think it's called the Adobe Trust Network. And so we used to be able to assign PDF documents with regular user certificates, and that worked great. And like a lot of great things, it went the other way. And Adobe decided to make only their list of named CAs suitable for signing PDFs. And Sectigo does offer Adobe certificates commercially, but we have not yet to date included them in the InCommon Certificate Service. That's one of the things that's being looked at in the redesign. And so thanks for the question. I think there's a lot of value in doing that. I think we can all see that, but just wanted to note that those are a special type of certificate that has not yet been included. And then we had another question: how efficient is CertBot in terms of generating these certificates? And Lisa, I'm going to punt that to you, since you seem to be using CertBot more than some of the others.
Thank you, Paul. Yes, we are. So CertBot it's actually very efficient, and a lot of the efficiency lies in how you configure it and how you leverage that. The configuration remains static through unless you need to change it. I'm running CertBot through a homegrown Ansible role. So I use a configuration file in Ansible to push through all the request values to CertBot. And the return response time for that certificate is literally the few seconds that it takes the Ansible role to run and process through. Like I mentioned, we are not fully automated on that, so there isn't a routine cadence or timing yet for issuing our certs and just leaving it to run. But that is a capability in CertBot configuration, so it's very efficient. We have not tried other automation mechanisms, so it is the only one we have used so far.
Thank you. And we also had a question: are there any plans to add private CA or a CA connector? And I can answer that one. We are looking at adding a private CA. There's a lot of uses for that. Device certificates is one of the uses for a private CA. As you might be able to imagine, it's hard for a public certificate authority like Sectigo or any of the others to attest to the fact that this certificate was issued to, you know, a microscope or a printer or any number of other devices. So when we're talking about device certificates, that's a great use for private CAs. Eduroam is probably a really good use for private CAs, because you can do a lot of things with a private CA that you can't do with a public CA. And you're also not restricted about terms and things like that. You know, we talk frequently about the CA browser forum or the CAB forum. You may have heard it that way. When you have a private CA, the CAB forum does not come in and tell you how to run your private CA. So the restrictions that we have from the CAB forum aren't in place for a private CA. So AD integration, Active Directory integration, that's another thing private CAs are useful for. So I would imagine at this point we will see private CAs as an option in sort of a premium InCommon certificate service. We're not done with all that yet, obviously. And so we'll see, but that's looking pretty positive on that. So stay tuned on that. Thanks for the question. We had another question: has there been any discussion about possible Microsoft Intune integrations for user device certificates? I think I'm not incredibly familiar with Intune. I would imagine that would be a part of the private CA as well. But Warren, Nadine, Lisa, do any of you know anything about the Microsoft Intune certificates?
I'm not. We start looking into it, but we were going to maybe use some other vendor to do that. But we have not used it.
I think we're beginning to look into it here on our end. It's mainly for testing to see how well it integrates with all of our other products, but we're still in the exploration stage.
And we are actually using Intune for device management. We're still developing our use of Intune. I believe that we are using our Microsoft private certificates for wireless authentication on campus, and those initial registrations are being pushed out through Intune when users come onto the campus. That's handled by another team outside of mine and in conjunction with our networking group. So I wish I could tell you more about it, but that's about the extent of it.
Great. Thank you. Sounds like that would be another use case for the private CA. And I know that Sectigo has some very specific integrations with Active Directory. So we'll look to hear more about that in the future. The next question is anyone using Sectigo's network agents instead of Acme? We looked into it, but we're not comfortable configuring root/admin user and passwords in the tool for deployment. So the question is, who's using the network agents? Punt that to Warren, Nadeem, and Lisa.
We are not using it at the present moment, but we are looking into it. So I can't answer the question regarding the root/admin user password in it. But on the Unix side, we decided to do the certbot, and on the Windows side, the network agent. So, but we have not had a chance to deploy it yet.
And at Iowa, we are also, we have small pockets of DRAOs who are looking into all of the various ways that they can economize and gain efficiencies, but it's in exploration at the moment as well.
And at NAU, we actually did something very similar to Springfield College. We went with the network agent for Windows and the certbot solution for our Linux servers. And largely for the concern that's posted in this question, we weren't comfortable setting up our admin user and password. We were struggling with what model to build the certificate, the receiving endpoint on the campus. Do we send it in, all communications out through proxy, receive it on a central node, and then have our on-campus clients gain access to those certs? We weren't really ready and still are not ready to have certificates just pushed to any of the web servers or places that those are being used and reinstalled and restarted, because there are some services that we offer that don't work well with automatic restart. And anyone who's using PeopleSoft will be familiar with that particular use case. But it is something we tried and that we're going to revisit as we move forward on our automation journey.
And this is a bit of an aside, but is it fair to say that you might like to grow that into ServiceNow as well? Because it seems like I recall that ServiceNow has the capabilities of also managing certificates as one of its assets.
ServiceNow does, but ServiceNow is problematic with Sectigo certificates in particular. The last foray that I had in that world, when we were looking at what we would do to automate and how we could automate, and the primary reason behind our choosing the Sectigo Spoken connector integration instead was that ServiceNow supports certificates with DigiCert, and they do not import the Sectigo data appropriately. And so I looked at the epoch falling back to something ridiculous like 1970, and it was not a useful measure. I played around a little bit seeing if I could massage the epoch, and I could not get anything successful. Data fields were not a good alignment with what was expected in the ServiceNow template versus the CSV file that I could export from Sectigo. So we didn't pursue that. What they advertise and what they are actually capable of currently, and the providers, CA providers, isn't a fit for us.
Is that using the official Sectigo ServiceNow connector or some other integration?
No, using the Sectigo integration connector, that one works well. That one is the route that we went. The pure ServiceNow certificate management uh, application feature that they have did not work well.
Okay. Good to know. Thank you for that bit of extension. I appreciate that.
No problem.
Next question Dan asked last we heard was that Chrome would possibly limit certificates to a 90-day expiration in Q4 of this year. Has there been an update on the timeline for this? So there's not been an official update on the timeline for a 90-day expiration of certificates, but from talking to the folks at Sectigo that know, some of which participate on the CAB forum, it's not a desire that Google expressed about 90-day certs, but more of a warning that Google was expressing, saying that it will happen eventually. And as we've seen, even if the CAB forum doesn't say it first that we'll do 90-day certs, all the browser vendors have to do, like Apple and Google, is say we're going to do it, and the world has to fall into compliance. So no official updates on that, but everybody is still of the opinion that it is coming sooner or later. We had one more question pop up. Somebody was really quick. We've run into issues with continuing to provide AAA certificate services intermediary with our cert chains. Are there plans to remove it? This is mostly no is the answer. Whoops, hang on, let me click the button. No is the answer to that question. There's no plans to remove it. The problem is really a chaining thing, which is a client thing. So it's either the browser or whatever other client and how it chooses to follow a certificate chain. And so that's Sectigo's primary route. It's the route of SSL and code signing and one other one I can't remember right now, but that is their primary route. And so it was a cross-signed route with one of their older routes, and some of the clients were getting confused as far as how to chain that. Particularly, we saw problems on Mac computers, but I'm of the opinion that those clients will be fixed if they're not already being fixed in terms of following the chain correctly. Now, there are also techniques you can do to force the chain by, similar to how you put the intermediary in with your end entity certificate that web servers hand out. They can hand out those proper routes as well. So there's techniques about that. If you're having trouble with it, I would encourage you to open a case with Sectigo to let them know about it. They hear about it a lot more than we do. And so I know they've got some tips and techniques for how to deal with that. But thank you for the question. Thank you much to our speakers. Thank you, Lisa. Thank you, Nadine. Thank you, Warren. Really appreciate your time and efforts to develop content and tell us about your experiences with certificates and how you're looking forward to using certificates in the future. I want to thank everybody that joined today. At one point, I saw it up to 65, may have been more than that, attendees. That's great. Thank you all for being here. Thank you for taking time out of your day to come hear about the certificate service. And I hope you all have a great rest of your day. We've put some links here to the Sectigo Certificate Manager Admin Guide, the Network Agent Guide, the Sectigo Support website. Thank you all for joining and have a great day.